Morning, Jacob. You mentioned multiplayer games. There's really two kinds of multiplayer games in my experience. There's the ones that are built around community, and then there's the ones around competition. While I was being homeschooled, I played a lot of the community-oriented multiplayer games. The first real online multiplayer game I remember playing was a multi-user dungeon, where it was basically you make a character and other people have made characters, and you just go in there. There's a setting for the whole thing, and you tell stories. That's all you do. I still play similar stuff with D&D and all those other kinds of tabletop games, but that was the majority of my social interaction early on, was these kinds of create a character, tell story games. It really defined how I use language. I try to be very specific with what I'm trying to say. I try to leave it very unambiguous, because with text you don't get the intonation from the person saying it. You can still kind of get that across if you play with the same people regularly, where you actually start picking up on their speech patterns. But for the most part, you really have to be very specific with what you're trying to say, or it gets interpreted incorrectly, much more often than it would face-to-face. It also made me learn to type very, very rapidly. When you have 7 or 8 people all in the same scene, doing stuff simultaneously, somewhat asynchronously, where there's no set order for how people are supposed to be doing things, it gets very, very fast-paced, very, very hectic. And if you can't keep up in both reading and writing, you are going to be very, very lost. You mentioned GoldenEye, which is more on the competitive side of things in my idea of multiplayer games. I never really got much into those. I much prefer working together with people to build a story or a building or something. I much prefer the teamwork. The cooperative or community-based games were my social life for several years, so I guess I'm kind of biased towards them, but to this day I still prefer to play games with friends, people that I already know, or games where the community is a large part of the game, to games where you may see a player once and then never again. And that's considered the norm for that kind of game. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but that's what came to mind when you said playing GoldenEye with friends. I don't really have a topic to set for this week, but if you find anything in here to continue with, I'm quite enjoying this line of conversation. I'll see you Wednesday.